Dear Star Trek fan, are you tired of lens flares, red angels, and this passing for a Klingon? Mystery box plotlines that go nowhere, and well, this? Have you grown weary of this bleak and dismal final frontier? Do you long for a kinder, more optimistic take on Gene Roddenberry's future that will leave you feeling like you were watching a first-run episode of Voyager on UPN? If so, then you're in luck. So buckle up as we take a dive into Star Trek Resurgence. Star Trek Resurgence is an interactive narrative video game developed by Dramatic Labs, a studio that is a collaboration of 20-plus former Telltale Games staff. The game was released in May 2023 to Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, and takes place in the era after the final next-generation movie Nemesis. The game follows the adventures of the USS Resolute, a Centaur-class ship that utilizes stock parts of the Excelsior and Miranda-class starships. In the game, the player takes the role of two different characters. One of them is Commander Jara Rydek, the new first officer of the Resolute, who is half human and half Roblead. Being part Roblead, Commander Rydek requires the occasional infusion of Duridium, a biological cell stabilizer. Robleads are a callback to a Deep Space Nine episode called The Passenger, and the inclusion of one in this game demonstrates the care for Star Trek lore that the game's writers have. The other character the player takes the role of is as Petty Officer Carter Diaz. He is assigned to engineering aboard the Resolute and gives the player the hands-on experience of working aboard a starship, whereas Jara Rydek deals with the command and diplomacy vantage point of being in Starfleet. At the outset of the game, the USS Resolute has recently undergone 6 months of a refit, and after an accident, left the ship severely damaged, and which also saw the loss of their first officer. These events were covered in a 5-part comic book series released by IDW. These comics acted as a prequel to the game and featured in them the return of Leia Brahms, the same scientist that worked on the Galaxy-class starship's development, and also who worked on Geordi LaForge's heart. As the game begins, the Resolute's captain, Zachary Solano, is attempting to set things right after the accident that had befallen his ship and crew. He is out to prove himself worthy of the second chance Starfleet has given him, when Commander Rydek first reports to him aboard the Resolute. But neither he nor Commander Rydek will need to wait long to have their mettle tested, as the Resolute is soon drawn into a diplomatic incident involving a dilithium mining dispute between two opposing alien species, the Illydians and the Hotari. However, the crew of the Resolute get some well-needed assistance as Ambassador Spock joins them in their mission to settle this dispute. Things are further complicated, though, as another force emerges, the mysterious Tikan Empire, which appears to be playing a hand in driving up the current tension between the two. So, will the crew of the Resolute be able to put their misgivings behind them after their recent accident and trust their captain again? Will they be able to settle the dispute between the Illydians and the Hotari? And will they be able to stop the Tikan Empire before it's too late? Now, I won't spoil the remainder of the plot for you here. If anything, the story and love for Star Trek makes for the real highlight of the game. For instance, the inclusion of the Tikan Empire, which first appeared in the episode of The Next Generation called The Last Outpost, is an incredible callback to an episode that left more story to be told regarding the mysterious Tikan Empire. This episode saw a dispute between the Ferengi and the Enterprise D culminate in a confrontation on the Tikan outpost world of Delphi Ardu 4. There, then Commander William Riker negotiated with the Tikan Guardian named Portal 6-3 to resolve the matter peacefully. Star Trek Resurgence brings back both Riker and Portal 6-3. Riker, in the game's post-Nemesis era, is posted aboard the USS Titan, and Jonathan Frakes is back in the game, voicing the character. And Portal 6-3, well, he seems to have updated his skincare routine since then. But on the topic of Star Trek Legacy characters making an appearance in the game, Spock, being voice acted by actor Peter Michael, is a great inclusion of the classic character that does justice to the original character as portrayed by the late Leonard Nimoy without feeling disjointed or feeling out of place. Gameplay, however, in Star Trek Resurgence is where the game stumbles in its overall execution. As far as being an interactive narrative experience, the game's conversation dialogues are often timed at critical choices. But when the timer runs out, the screen will freeze until the player makes their next decision. This negates any tension that the timer adds to the player's decision making. Beyond the narrative aspect, the gameplay consists of quick-time events and basic minigames. There are also phaser fights, and a tricorder that is used to scan for important information during the course of a mission. The quick-time events and the minigames are too simple to actively engage the player in the game's action. And, as far as the phaser combat controls are concerned, they are stiff and feel to lack a real fluid response to the player's input when ducking from out of cover to engage enemies. However, by far the most challenging and frustrating game mechanic is the tricorder. Keeping in line with the great Star Trek tradition of doing so, the tricorder is used to scan areas for important clues and information. This was such a great potential in a game such as this to use the tricorder to help piece together clues and solve mysteries. This is something that the Telltale Batman game did a far better job at. In that game, the player felt the immersion of being a detective as they took on the role of Bruce Wayne and Batman. Dramatic Labs was unfortunately unable to recapture that here. Instead, the use of the tricorder often consists of sweeping throughout the entire field of view with it to find whatever arbitrary information will progress the game. At no point does the game ever truly allow players to piece together the clues that are discovered, and perhaps even fail in what conclusions that the player then draws from them. Rather, the game just progresses you along once the correct shape is scanned on screen. So far, as much as Star Trek Resurgence calls back to the old point-and-click adventures of games such as Star Trek the 25th Anniversary, Judgment Rights, and the next generation title, A Final Unity, the game lacks the immersive experience that those games provided. It wasn't simply that those games gave players the opportunity to live out new adventures with the entire cast of original actors reprising their roles. Rather, despite what nowadays would be considered relatively simple graphics, those games allowed for a more interactive experience by putting control of the game's investigation and puzzle solving into the player's hands. Despite this, these missteps in gameplay design don't diminish from the love that the developers clearly have for Star Trek. The inclusion of an alien from a single episode of Deep Space Nine, or that of Portal 6-3 in the Takan Empire, demonstrates that the team from Dramatic Labs know and care about this franchise, not like some. Rather, this game has the feel of late Rick Berman-era Star Trek, the experience being similar to watching an episode of Voyager or Enterprise. It takes you neither to the heights nor the depths of what Star Trek can be, but the care for this franchise's lore and the overall narrative tone of the game might just be enough to transport existing Star Trek fans to the final frontier. But beware, clunky gameplay mechanics leave for a rocky trip. Hey, so if you like this video, consider subscribing. We're just getting started here and looking forward to bringing you more content from the worlds of gaming, music, entertainment, and more. We would love to hear from you, so if you have any suggestions for future content, leave it in the comments below. And if you like this, consider following us on Twitch to connect with us live. Click the link to find us there, and we'll see you next time.